I am joined by Euan King, goaltending coach for the Cardiff Devils, Great Britain men's senior team, and owner of Kings Elite Goaltending Company, and consultant for the Vernol Oilers. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, USPHL.
USPHL, get that one in at the end.
Yeah.
Did I get all of your jobs in?
I think so. I think that's everything. Um,
Sure? Sure you've not got any more on the side?
not that I can remember, but it could that could change by the end of this conversation.
It
So
depends what you say.
you never know.
Yeah, it depends what you say and who you say it about.
Yeah.
So, we're going to just have a chat if it's okay with you. And I have got a few questions, but I'm sure it'll be pretty kind of off on different tangents as they normally are.
Yeah.
But one place to start really is, and the reason I'm going to start with this one is I asked Dave Clancy the same one from a GB women's point of view. What are you sort of looking for when you're looking to either develop or identify international level goalies?
Um, when it comes to that level of play, like most goalies have the technical and the basic foundations which allow them to be successful. However, the game now is so fast, especially international level or in the elite league or in the professional leagues, that goalies can't literally rely on their technical ability to make saves. They have to be able to read, anticipate, identify dangers, and basically be one step ahead. So if you break goaltending down into two parts, you've got the technical, which is like the butterfly, the skating, the glove hands, the angles, all that sort of stuff. Then you've got the tactical side of the game, which is the threat identification, anticipating how they read the game, who's the main threat, who's a secondary threat, what's the most likely thing to happen, how they read the stick blade when the puck is released. There's all these other things which go into actually making a save. And for me now, I think the technical side of the game is important, but the tactical game is probably more important now because the game is so fast. It is so lateral. If you don't read and anticipate the play very well and don't identify those threats and those dangers and read releases well, then you're going to struggle in the modern game. So I would say those are the two main things I look for, but definitely the tactical side of the game is very important now.
I would imagine, like in most sports, that when you get to the top of the pyramid, the technical differences are quite small, right? Like you don't not to the level like you go to watch an under 12s game and you see a goalie that's this goal is here, this goal is here, right? When you go and that's technical, tactical, whatever. But when you get to that elite level, to the untrained eye, you don't see many differences.
No, you're right there, and also the not every goalie is the same, but every goalie will have the same basic foundation. So if you look in the NHL, let's say you got Vasilevsky on one end and you've got Jonathan Quick or Marc Andre Fleury on the other end. Um, Technically their skating, their footwork, their angles and all that sort of stuff are very much the same. Like you can't really notice that much different. They both play different styles, but the actual basic core foundations of that goalie is very, very similar. The big difference now is, like I said earlier, when it comes to the professional game and international level and stuff like that, is it's the reads and how they read the game and anticipate. So I think from my perspective, when I look at those goalies, I don't ever want to see a goal that looks technically very, very good letting in goals
Mm-hmm.
because they have the foundations, they have the skills, they have the techniques, but they don't actually anticipate what's happening next. So let's say, for instance, the game is black and white, the puck is in the dead zone, which is sort of from the posts on a diagonal from the far post out to the lower hash mark, or sorry, a little bit lower than the lower hash mark. Now, if you go textbook, when the puck enters into that area, you go into an RVH. That's what it used to be sort of 5, 10 years ago, which is great. That's very technical. The puck enters here. My rule book says I do this.
Mm-hmm.
However, what happens if there's a guy at the back door? What happens if there's a guy in the slot? What happens if he's on his forehand? What happens if he's on his backhand? There's all this other information they have to take in and process to be able to anticipate what comes next. So let's say, for instance, a goalie goes into player enters the dead zone every time RVH, but now he gets backdoored and there's an empty net. Well, he didn't anticipate and identify that. Now, a goalie that does anticipate and identifies will have that head check straight away to see, okay, where are the other dangers? Okay, he's on his backhand. He's not really a shooting threat. He's far away. I don't have to worry about that too much. He's my main danger. I'm going to stay on my feet. When that pass comes across, I just transition, get behind the puck, and make an easy save. So there's all the technical side of the game is good and important, but if they don't read and identify, they look really good in an RVH on the post. They look fantastic, but the puck goes across and the guy scores the back post. Yeah.
So I guess that kind of answers my next question a little bit, because I remember it would have been about this time last year, actually. You were in Budapest with Ferencváros, is that pronounced right?
Yep.
So you were in Budapest with Ferencváros. I came out, we sat down, we had quite a long chat about the stuff I was doing. And then from that, obviously, you've been a really big advocate, which, obviously, thank you for that. But what kind of, from our conversations at that point, what kind of put you in a place where you were like, right, I want to get this into the camp? So last summer, all of the Kings Elite camps we were at, doing the off-ice stuff. I mean, what kind of got you from us talking about the stuff I do to me coming and spending the summer with you?
Yeah. So from my perspective, as a coach, I know what I'm good at. So I can teach the on-ice stuff, I can teach the tactical, I can break down video, I can do all that sort of stuff. When it comes to the off-ice, S&C, I don't know enough about S&C. What I do, I bring in an expert. Okay, you know way more than me. You're the guy. Off-ice, when it comes to like the eye-hand coordination and the focus and the tracking and how you track and everything that goes into it from a eyes and cognitive point of view, I can run tennis ball drills, no problem. I can run making you do two things at once. So your feet are moving, your hands are moving, you have to put blindfolds on, all that sort of stuff. I can do the basics, but I don't know enough about what actually goes into that. And I don't know enough about the background of why. And I don't know enough about it as a general concept and how it all pieces together and works together. And from our conversation, like, you remind me very much of me when I talk about goaltending and stuff like that. Like,
maybe that's why the conversations last for ages.
Exactly. That's why we get on the phone. It lasts like 2 hours, because you're very passionate about it and you're very knowledgeable about it. And you were explaining stuff to me that I was like, I hadn't even thought of that. Like, okay, how does that work? How does that piece together? How does that translate? And then we also did something where you wanted me to send you a video of one of my goalies out in Budapest making a glove save to show how the vision worked and how it crossed different lines and stuff like that. And I remember watching it thinking, Jesus, like, I didn't even know about this. Like, this is kind of crazy. And like, okay, how can this work with us? And to be honest, like, I have two choices at this point. Okay, I can either go away and put in the hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of research and time and development that you've put in, plus your own money that you've spent to invest in your qualifications and the equipment and everything that goes into that. And I don't have the time to do that. But I have someone in yourself who is a complete expert in this. And if anyone comes to me with a question on something to do with like tracking or like the focus points and where my eyes are and distractions and how to deal with all this stuff, like, I don't have enough knowledge in this, but you do. So as soon as we had those conversations, I'm like, you know what, this is something which is going to add major value to our camps, but more importantly, add major value to our athletes. And I think from my perspective, I've always tried to change the game as much as I can in the UK for goalies, because goalies sort of got abandoned for quite a few years, and now that's changing and stuff like that. But we can always be better. And the cognitive side of the game is used very much in the top ends of sport: NHL, NFL, NBA, MLB, football, Premier League, rugby, everything. But we don't really use it enough in ice hockey. So as soon as we had those conversations and I knew that you were so passionate about it and the knowledge base you had and stuff, I'm like, you know what, this is going to be a major benefit for our athletes. They're going to get way better off ice training. They're going to go away being way better athletes mentally than when they arrive. So for me, it was, if I didn't take that opportunity, I would have been stupid.
So what was the feedback like from the sort of participants? And obviously, because you know what it's like. You work with somebody on the ice, and the minute they skate off, they go, "Oh, Euan, that's brilliant. Thanks ever so much. You were great." But then you're never quite sure, like, So they all tell me it was really enjoyable and they got loads out of it. But you would have been, as the head of the operation, kind of like getting that parental feedback or getting feedback from the athletes or even the other coaches that were watching it. We had sort of Marzi and Ethan and Will and, you know, all those kind of guys who spent a lot of the summer seeing it.
Yeah.
What was the feedback like from people who maybe hadn't seen any of this stuff before? Was it good or was it?
Well, it's kind of funny. So I'm going to skip ahead slightly, not go with the students first. I'll go with the coaches.
Okay.
Because obviously the coaches, we had like Jordan Headley, GB International, Will Curlin, played GB Juniors, Jordan Marr, top goalie in the National League, Ethan James, all these guys who play at a really decent level. And at one point, I think I had to remind one of them that it was for the kids. It wasn't for them, because they got so enthused by it. And what I think was really good was everything was sort of a challenge to them. Like, it wasn't the generic show up, just going to catch a tennis ball. That's it. There's all these other things. Like the one that really stands in my head was the threat identification, where they had the piece of paper with the story on, and they had to look at the blaze pod, which changed color. Hopefully I'm not giving away your secrets here.
No, but it's interesting, right? Because this is the exact same story that Clancy referred to.
Yeah, it's a fantastic drill. Again, like, that's something that never even crossed my mind ever. Like, we maybe do it where we like have to turn around and someone's like turn around, see what that number says, and then catch a ball. But like actually reading, because now like they've got to physically find on an A4 piece of paper with 200 words on it where they were on the story. So they've got to be able to identify quick and then focus back to where they were, which you have to do all the time in a game.
Yeah.
Like, when the puck is in the end zone, a lot of times people think the goalies are just sole focus is the puck, right? That's what you got to try and stop.
Keep your eye on the puck.
Yeah, keep your eye on the puck, exactly. But during that time, if the puck is behind the goal line, I would expect my goalie to probably look into the slot maybe 3 or 4 times just to see who's there. But the actual look and the glance is like that. So they've got to be able to identify the player, the hand, and if he's got time and space, and then find that puck again. And then he's got to do it again. And now that player might have moved. So where has he gone? And they've got to try and process all this information, which you can do on the ice. That's fine. You do it in drills and stuff like that. But to do it off ice and to basically make it pretty hard is pretty incredible. Like, I know that from the students' perspective or on the camps, like, a lot of the times they were probably more excited about doing the off ice stuff sometimes than the on ice stuff, because it's something new, it's something fresh. And I think, from my perspective, if you're having to use your brain and think and try and do something you're not very comfortable in, it actually pushes you to try and be better. And I think a lot of them found it quite challenging to start with. Like, I won't say any names, but someone's been on the academy for years and does all our camps, and she's always there and she's done everything. And like, she absolutely loved the off ice because it was such a challenge for her, but she could see why it translated into the game. And I think that's the big difference. Like, if you can do something off ice, which is going to train your brain and help rewire your brain to pick up that information off the ice, on the ice it becomes a lot easier because we don't get a lot of ice in the UK. So sorry, I'm rambling a little bit there, but hopefully that answered the question.
No, I think the reading drill is really like, no, it's not letting in secrets, and it is really difficult. And I think it's one that a lot of people go, oh, we're not doing that, are we? You know, like, because it's just hard. But the interesting point you made was the whole scanning in the slot kind of thing, right? So I think what people don't understand and still don't understand, despite constant kind of reiteration of the message, is that that's a skill, right? And that is a skill that can be learned independently or developed independently. So you don't just have to be on the ice taking 500 shots in the same drill to develop that element of it. You can go away and go, right, actually, I'm going to do this off ice, because the way the brain works is the neural pathways that you create are created by the process of what you're doing, not the fact that you're doing it on ice or off ice. Yeah. So the skill of scan identification, processing, if you do it off ice, it's creating the same neural pathways as doing it on ice. So it's a direct transfer. You're not going, oh yeah, but you don't read on the ice, so it doesn't like transfer. It's like, no, the skill of away, back is exactly the same as what you do on the ice. And that builds the neural pathways in your brain, which makes you quicker at it and more efficient. And I think that's what people struggle with. You know, like the gym's the analogy, right? If you go to the gym and you go, right, I'm going to do leg day.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks, oh, do I leave my quads at the gym and then go on the ice and I don't see a benefit? You kind of know that that strength transfers into your skating performance or whatever. But I still see people kind of question, yeah, but does it transfer? Like, do I see
Yeah.
a benefit on the ice? You know, and it's like,
Well,
that's the difficult one.
talking about like the benefits on the ice, like I can't remember the name of the glasses that you have that they flick black and then back to
The
seeing
stroboscopic.
stroboscopics. Those. So if you think about it now, how many times as a goalie, young or old, do you get, I didn't see it, there was a screen?
Yeah.
But nowadays, like the modern game, there isn't too many static screens, because if you've got a static screen from a goalie, if I'm watching a game and I see my goalie's got a static screen, I'm like perfect, because all he has to do is go, okay, he's left-handed, I'm going to pick this way. Now I can stick blade, I see the release, it's no problem. Now, modern game, everyone flashes. Every flash screen, you take away the goalie's eyes just before the puck is released, because that's how you lose track of the puck. But then I think you got me on the glasses, and I got to have a go with it. I got hit in the head quite a few times with tennis balls because I'm old and I wasn't very good as a goalie. But straight away, like as soon as we started doing it, I'm like, you know what? This is a flash screen. This is a flash screen, because I see it, I see the release, but then I lose it because the guy flashed across me. Now, then I can see again. So, okay, perfect. So in a game, I can see the release. So I've sort of had to process that information and assume that it's taken that trajectory, it's coming at that speed, so I need to move to here at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. But now now it's gone dark. So I'm like, oh my God. Now straight away as a human, my brain goes, oh my God, I can't see. Like, and you don't want to say panic mode, but you do sort of panic a little bit.
Yep.
Okay, great. So now I've got to deal with this. So this ball's coming, it's gone black. Okay, I think it's here. Now, okay, cool, I've got it. Okay, oh no, I didn't. I got it. And now I'm having to actually process that information and take everything in, but keep myself calm. That when it goes black, I've got it. I've processed all the information. I'm going to get there and I'm going to catch it. And I think that's something else as well, where on the ice, you're going to just work with flash screens, right? Just flash screen, flash screen, flash screen, flash screen, find it, find it, find it. But now I'm actually working on it off the ice without even having to move. All I've got these special glasses on that make it go dark quickly and come back. And yeah, like there's a lot of stuff which we did that once I had a go on it as well, I go, you know what? I can see how this works on the ice. Like this is pretty incredible. Like
so with the sorry, just interrupt with the strobe glasses, the stroboscopic training. So you're working on anticipatory timing. That's fundamentally what they do. So they take something from point A, whether that be my hand throwing something at you or the stick release or whatever, to point B, which is the glove. And this is kind of going back to the thing you were saying about the video we did about G in Budapest.
Yeah.
Was that, you cannot track as a goaltender a puck from release to hand. You cannot watch it all the way. It's physically impossible. So you can train your eyes as much as you like, but you'll never see it all the way. So what happens is you try and read the release, because that gives you all the clues and the kind of, this is going to go here, here, here. You know, kind of what you know about the game and kind of the, like he's in this position, I'm in this position, means I'm only really showing this bit of the net. So the likelihood is either going to hit me or go here. So you have all these things that go in a split second. Bear in mind that, you're talking about 0.2, 200 milliseconds from release to hitting you. But the anticipatory timing is basically sort of saying, right, it's coming from there, it's going to go here. And that's what the strobe glasses do. They basically sort of say, right, it's going to be somewhere around here. And because you train your brain at a suboptimum level, when you then don't have the glasses on or you see that shot without a flash screen, it becomes so much easier because you're training at suboptimum. So it's a bit like putting going into a chamber to do kind of altitude training. You then train at normal sea level and it's like, oh, it's breeze. I can run for miles.
Yeah.
And that's what that is. So it's suboptimum training and it's anticipatory timing, and both of which are paramount for goaltending, because as you say, we know in an ideal world, you want to see the release before, during and prior. So there's something called the quiet eye, which is the theory on how you track moving objects really quickly. And it's all down to the release, whether that be a baseball pitch or a bowling cricket or whatever. But if you don't see the release, what happens? Or if you don't see the release for the optimum time, what happens? And that's when there's an element of guesswork in goaltending, and that's when you tend to get blocking saves, just like drop yourself down, get big, and hope it hits you, which is great, and there's a place for that because but it's reducing those amount of saves, right? It's reducing those please hit me saves to I'm proactively getting into the right place based on the information that I've seen. So that's kind
Yeah,
of just the sciencey bit of why we do that.
for me, I love that because like as a coach, like people sometimes think that goalie coaches are these big technical. You have this. For me, I think I'm pretty simple. I have three simple rules for my goalies. Three, that's it. Use your feet as much as you possibly can because the game's changed. You have to use your feet to get around the crease now. Good stops to allow yourself to be set, ready for the shot. If you're not set, you're going to struggle to be able to react. And the third one is active hands. Like if you can have good active hands, you stay in complete control of the game because you don't give up rebounds. You send pucks away to the corners. You catch pucks, you kill the game. You basically don't allow any secondary chances. So everything that we do with the off-ice stuff with the hand coordination fits perfectly with my philosophy and ethos as a coach because there is areas where you want the goalie to block. Like, don't get me wrong, that is still in the game, but that area is getting smaller and smaller. Like, if you can read the release and anticipate, and I can't remember how you described it, the focal release point.
So the anticipated timing is basically from the release point to
Yeah,
where you envisage it ending up so A to B.
yeah. So if you can do that from 6 feet outside the crease, you're going to catch everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's a pipe dream, but now, okay, great. I can trust myself that I'm going to catch. And guess what? There's no rebounds there because again, like in the modern game, if goalies get beat on a straight shot, usually it's not a great goal. Let's be honest, because goalies are so good now. So it's the secondary chances where people score or lateral plays, and that's where the identification and stuff comes in. But if you give up less rebounds and less secondary chances, it equals less goals. So the better
Mm-hmm.
your hands are, the easier it is to be a goalie, especially at the top levels.
And the other thing you said that was really interesting about when you had the glasses on was just the ability to keep calm.
Yes.
So we did a lot of work with that with people over the summer. You know, we had the headband on, tracking their kind of what was going on in their heads through all this, and trying to work out whether we could keep them calm or under pressure. Because when you are stressed or your mind is busy, science tells us that you perform at your suboptimum level. So if you can maintain a calm, relaxed, clear mind,
Yeah.
then you have a higher chance of getting into this flow state, which is what everyone aspires to be in all the time, right? Because we know that flow is the sort of the way that you get your best performance. All those
Yeah.
games that you think back to in any sport where you go like, I was just like, it was just easy. I was just in the moment. I didn't really think about it. It just went perfectly. You know, that's flow. And to get to that, you have to be clear headed. You have to be able to regulate your breathing because what happens with goaltending, and probably more than a lot of sports, is you end up with this overstimulation or understimulation of your mind during a game. So understimulation generally occurs when it's one-sided, you know, so
Yeah.
you're like, it's all down the other end, you've had a long time without action, you start to think about what you're having for your tea, you know, you're looking at the clock thinking, God, there's still another 9 minutes, this is really boring, and then the next thing you know, goal.
Yeah.
Right, and that's like understimulation, and that can be difficult, and you've got to regulate that. You've got to kind of get yourself out of that. But overstimulation is the other way, where you start getting too excited,
Yeah.
and you start like getting a bit kind of like, oh, you know, and you're like, then it's like that's not great either, because when you're like that, you don't make rational decisions. So it's like, right now I need to regulate my breathing. I need to calm myself down a bit, because so the awareness of that and being able to regulate yourself and say, like, this is not the place I want to be. So we've talked quite a bit about the whole mental reset after goals.
Yeah.
And my kind of counter take on that is actually you should be doing that before the goal goes in, because sometimes the goal is the result of something wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
So you go like, right, goal, have a drink. Well, what if we could actually get people to know what was going on before the goal, and subsequently perhaps the reset comes earlier and then we don't have the goal? That
Yeah.
would be better, right?
Yeah. That it's funny when you said that the other week to me. Time I thought about, it, I was like, okay, how would that work? But then I thought back to when I used to play, or you can sometimes see actually with goalies, like you can see that okay, like there's times I will watch a game and like whenever I watch a game, I'm always up high. I like
Yeah.
to sit up high because I can see the whole ice, I can see everything, and I can see what's coming next and anticipate threats and all that sort of stuff because that's what I like to do. So it's funny you say about the reset before it happens because ever since we spoke about it, I've noticed a few things. I'm like, oh, hang on, things are getting a bit erratic here. okay, let's see what happens. And sometimes it leads to a goal, sometimes it doesn't. But it's like, okay, now I can actually see that after our conversation that, you know what, yeah, you're right. Like,
But the lead to the goal or the doesn't lead to the goal doesn't always tell you the answer.
No, but you can tell that there's like,
yeah.
Now
but it could have been happening and they still don't score.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Because they miss or because it hits you or blah 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 blah, whatever. Right. So
but now you can see the jumpiness. You can see the, I don't want to say panic because that's the wrong word, but you can see that it's getting a little bit erratic.
Yeah.
And, okay, yeah. So if you can have some sort of switch or trigger or reset in your head, you just quickly calm yourself back down again. That's going to be dynamite.
Which is why the focus calm thing is so important, because what focus calm does, you put that headband on and it tells you what's going on in your head, right? So when you get to that point of panic or the triggers that might be the point where a goal goes in, the headband will go red and your score will drop really low. So that's when we know that you're not in an optimum place mentally. Now, the reason that's so important is it's constant neurofeedback. So it's a bit like doing a rep in front of a mirror and going like, oh, this doesn't look quite right. You know, like you can see what's going wrong. It's the mirror to your mind in effect.
Yeah.
So what you learn then is you go, right, okay, so this is telling me I'm not in the optimum place. But what does that feel like? Like how could I identify this if I couldn't read the number or I couldn't see the colour? Well, I know that I'm thinking about stuff that I shouldn't be thinking about. Like, my mind's wandering. So that obviously causes that. Or I know my breath's gone quite short, or I'm perhaps not, my focus is drifting. So that causes that. Or maybe my palms have gone clammy. So that causes that. So then when you're in a game and you go, right, my mind's wandering, that would mean I'm in red. We know that means I'm not going to be at my optimum best. So then I do this, this, and this to reset that. Yeah. So you start to learn a little bit about regulation of your own mind, right? And then you're not relying on the red light going on to go, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Have a drink, spray the water, whatever it may be. Now, the difficulty in that is that will happen constantly throughout a 60-minute game.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't get. They think like, oh, well, 4 or 5 times and my mind might wander. But when you notice it, that's a huge one. That's like, I've switched off, I've gone home for the day.
Like,
it's all.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, it's all the little ones that we don't pick up on. Just those, even things like looking at the clock to see how long's left on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
The minute you do that, you're focusing on the next 35 seconds ahead or whatever it may be left.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to, once you do that, you've then got to go, right, okay, 35 seconds, back to where we are.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're thinking ahead. And then how many shutouts get blown in the last minute of a game? Because people are drinking the beer. In their head, they're like, the party pop's going, I'm definitely going to get man of the match. Like, amazing. Oh, goal.
Yeah.
So that thinking ahead or thinking backwards is like constant.
It's interesting. I know we had a conversation about this before with the tracker on the head and stuff like that. Like, if you think about it as a young kid or even an older adult teen, you're going to go into situations you've never been in before, where pressure is going to be a little bit higher than you maybe never expected.
Yeah.
So let's use an example. So let's say like you're under 15s and you're in a national final. You're used to playing in front of 20 people and a dog, and now there's a couple hundred people in Ice Sheffield, and there's a big trophy on the end of the line. And you come out, it's a bit loud, it's a bit noisy. You're not used to that. So that's going to put you in a bad mental state straight away.
Yeah.
So how are you going to be able to get that trigger going? And same as like, let's say for instance, like we were in Sheffield 2 nights ago for a game, and like I was up on the media gantry and I'm looking down and thinking, you know what, like thinking as me as a player, not as a coach, I'm looking at, I'm like, there's 10,000 people in here. We got on the ice at 6:55. Like by the time the Steelers had done their entrance, it was 7:09, I think. Then you've got the national anthem. Then you've got this, and you've got 10,000 people cheering for the opposition. Mm-hmm. Like all this stuff is going on, and in a 15-minute window, I'm like, how do you stay focused? How do you not let that pressure get to you? Like you can see the goal or something happens, and there's 10,000 people not booing, but they're chanting some sort of song against you. So there's all these other little pressures that come into a game, and it's very easily to get wrapped up in your own head. So if you can come up with a way to basically that mental reset, not just after a goal, but okay, like I'm on I don't know, minute 10 of this 15-minute intro. Okay, I need to calm myself. How am I going to do that?
Yeah, it's a really important point. Really important. And I'll sort of expand on it a little bit from working with people in other sports. So one of the big issues we have is that we leave the dressing room prepared to play. So, like, I don't know, a goalie or an ice hockey player might do something in the tunnel before they come out. You know, they might go, right, I'm good. And then they come out, and like you say, there's 20 minutes to a puck drop pretty much.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you keep that going for 20 minutes? Or actually, do you not? You know, do you actually have to almost go, that stuff I did in the tunnel is a little bit redundant to an extent. You know, maybe I need to be doing that with my, you know, if it's you see a lot of goalies, right, head down, kind of sort of just talking to themselves, doing whatever. Well, maybe I need to do that on the blue line when the anthem's playing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I need to be nearer to the start before, because I like that and it works for me. But then how many goals do we concede in the first 3 minutes?
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit like the warm up, right? I mean, the warm up is like, yeah, warm, I'm warm. But then you got like 30 minutes till puck drop.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, well, how warm did you get? Because you better be really warm, because otherwise you're on the way down.
Yeah.
So there is a real kind of genuine issue with that, of this whole I'm ready to go before I step on the ice. And at juniors, it's not a big a deal, right? Because we're lucky if they get a 3-minute warm up.
Yeah, go straight into the game.
Yeah, and you know you need to be doing hand-eye work, because you're going to get 6 shots in the warm up, and 2 of them will probably take your head off.
Yeah.
So you know you need to make sure that your hand-eye work is good off ice. But at elite level, like, I don't know, bounces in the tunnel, does what he does. He's 20 minutes down before he takes a shot, or you know, like 20 minutes down till really he starts thinking about taking a shot.
Yeah,
that's a big gap, and I'm not sure that athletes think about that. If I'm honest, I'm not sure it comes into their process of getting ready for a game.
I think you're right too, because even from my perspective, like I hadn't really thought about it until this week. But I see it, I'm like, you know what? How do you keep focused? How do you reset and keep your mind ready to go? And when is the right time to get yourself ready to go? Because you're standing there for 15 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on. There's ceremonial puck drops. There's the national anthem. There's the mascot introductions. And this happens at every level of senior hockey in this country. Like, there's all these. If the game starts at 7 or the game starts at 5 or whatever, it's not facing off till 10 past. You can always guarantee it, because there's all these ceremonies beforehand. There's going to be a ceremonial puck drop. It's going to be the mascots. There's going to be the team introductions. There's going to be someone's X number of games. There's going to be someone whose birthday it is. Then you've got the starting 6. Then you've got there's all this stuff that happens before the game. So it's trying to know when to switch on.
And that changes depending on the situation. So like, you might be away at Sheffield, and Sheffield's might take 20 minutes. You might then go to Guildford, and Guildford get you on the ice and playing within 6.
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be. Do you know what I mean? So but what you do have to do is you have to work on, like anything, a structure that works for you, where you can put it into that night.
Yeah.
So if it becomes, well, I need 20 minutes before a puck drop, you're like, hold on a minute, you're not going to get 20 minutes at Guildford, you're only going to get 6.
Yeah.
So it's got to be something where, because repetition is key in all of this. And I think what happens is, and one of the issues that sometimes we have when we think about cognitive and mental skills, is that people do it, they like it, it works, they see a benefit, and then they stop doing it.
Yeah.
Because I've fixed it, right? I'm like, I'm good now.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but surely the longer you're turned on and focused, the more mentally fatigued you're going to get.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to take those breaks.
Yeah.
Give your brain a chance to rest. Because at the end of the day, your brain is a muscle too, right? It does get tired.
Yep. And it has no. So the difference with your brain is that it has no kind of. It doesn't have its own battery pack.
Yeah.
So it's powered from your body the same as your legs and your arms are, right? So if you're gassed, this is why when people are gassed, or they're like kind of physically knackered, they generally make poorer decisions. So you look at the whole like mountaineering, Everest, you know, like how many people die on Everest because they made a really shit decision.
Yeah.
Because they were knackered. You know, so the more physically tired you are, added then to the more mentally switched on you've had to be for the whole thing, the more the battery pack drains. So you've got to know when to switch off and switch on. And I think that's, we in hockey you use the red line, I guess, as kind of the, well, I don't know, but that's what maybe when they've got the puck, or you've got the puck, or when it exits into the far end, or whatever the terminology is, and I guess that's something that goaltenders would generally work on themselves. But I know that I've seen junior goalies who are in their stance, for example, the whole game.
Yeah, it's too much.
And it's like by draining your legs, you're draining your head. The whole thing doesn't. So you have got to be able to switch off. And if there's a gap between periods, again, not always the thing in junior hockey, but sort of as you get to perhaps 18s and you have an ice cup between the second and third, it's okay to switch off for 20 minutes.
Yes, agreed.
But you have to then be able to switch on again. And how do you do that? Well, that goes back to exactly what you would have done before period one. It starts in effect a new game.
Yeah.
But you don't have to sit in the changing room in full kind of like zoned out, I'm a wall kind of mode.
Yeah.
But yeah, your neural efficiency can be improved. That's the other thing just to mention on that point. So you can become better at regulating what goes on in your head and using the kind of the battery pack, because you become more efficient at what you do and don't do, and what you look at and what you don't look at, and what you process and what you don't process. So all the training, in effect, is a bit like training a muscle. You become more efficient in the way your brain operates as well.
Yeah.
So it is useful. So we've digressed a little bit, but so we go into the summer, we do the camps, you then made the decision to put kind of the stuff in with the academy monthly as well.
Yeah.
So what was the thought process behind that? Because obviously that's another kind of step of trying to get more people seeing it, I guess.
So again, like if you think about like with the academy, we used to do S&C with Staffy, and stuff that Staff did was fantastic. It was great. But we realized that people didn't really use it. Because a lot of the time, if you've got your own gym membership, you probably got your own PT, or you've got your own stuff you're working on. So it was a way to try and, okay, all right, what can we do that's going to offer more value to our students and help improve something off the ice, which they probably never even thought of, and stuff like that. And I know that I've been on a few of your sessions online, and you've done a few little like one-to-ones with me to show me how it all works and stuff like that. And the more and more I saw, and the more and more I thought, you know what, like in person is optimal. We all know in person is optimal.
Yeah.
If you can get someone in person, it's a lot easier. Like for instance, I can do the video with the goalies out in the States, and we go through it, like we go through their games and we talk about it, and I send them drills and stuff like that, and it's great, but I'm not physically there on the ice. And I feel like if I'm physically there on the ice with them, I can obviously get more out of them, but I'm still able to make a difference from this side of the pond and they're out there. Like I'll use an example, one of the goalies out there, Tino, he's not very tall, he's like 5'10", and he was playing very, very small, and we went through a lot of video and showed him how he could play bigger and a few little tweaks and stuff like that. And now I watch his games, it's perfect. It's really, really good. So I was able to have that impact remotely. So with the cognitive stuff that you do, and the, like the neuro tracker and the visual edge and the games with the balls, the different color balls and different colored pieces of paper and cones and all this sort of stuff that's making your brain work and think and basically reprogram your pathways, like you said earlier, this gold dust. It's genuine gold dust for people that people probably don't even realize that they can actually work and improve on at home. It's going to have a major impact on the ice. So the more and more we looked at it and we spoke about it and stuff, I thought, you know what, like this is going to, for me, I've said this to you before, like I think the cognitive stuff is a game changer for this country. It's goaltending wise. It really is, because there's no one in the country who knows more about this stuff than yourself. There's no one in this country that's putting the amount of time, effort, and resources than yourself. So why would I not offer that to my students? I'd be stupid not to. And the students can see a real value. I know our students who do the one-to-ones with you, like every time I speak to them, they're like, you know what? Because again, you're very similar to me. Like, I was only meant to be on there for half an hour, but I was on there for an hour and a half. I'm like, oh yeah, like, because once they get into it and once you get into it, you lose track of time. Like, I think we've been going now for like nearly an hour, and again, again, like it's kind of, you just lose track of time. I know how much you care about it, and for me, like I'm very particular who I associate with, and I will only ever do something with anything that I do with Kings Elite Goaltending that the people will be putting just as much in as I would. And I know from your perspective that that's, you probably go beyond me as well, which is great. And I just think it's something which is completely new for people, that's sort of right now a hidden gem in the UK. And I think the more our students do it and the more they understand it and the more they see it and the more they actually work on it, they're actually going to be way better in the next 6 to 12 months than they probably ever thought they could be. And I don't want to, I would say our students that do it on a regular basis, we're going to see really good results from them in the next 12 months. And they're going to be playing at a level higher than they probably were expecting to.
So when do you think? Here's a question for you. Probably I don't think I've asked this before, but when do you think we'll get to a point where you say to me, right, we're going to the Worlds next year, GB seniors. We're going to pick 3 goalies. When do you think we get to a world where cognitive assessment becomes part of talent identification? Or do you think we won't? Because we do in a lot of sports, right? So
Yeah.
the background to that question is that if you're going to get drafted into Major League Baseball, you're having a cognitive assessment.
Yeah.
If you're going to get drafted into the NFL, you're having a cognitive assessment.
Yeah.
NHL, are all the teams are using NeuroTracker, they're using Visual Edge, they're using those kind of matrices to see where people perform. So
Yeah.
there is an opportunity with this to get a little bit moneyballish, right? A little bit kind of like, well, hold on a minute, this kid here he's talking about the performance wheel. He's technically very good. He's tactically very good, physically very good. What are they like in that mental element of the performance wheel? Because I don't know if you told me or Clancy told me or something, but it's like, if they're not technically brilliant, that's probably easier for me to fix. Was that you? Or was that him? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I can fix the technical side of the game. I can't fix creativity.
Yeah. Do we ever get to a point, and if so, how long do you think that would be? Or do you think we don't get to that point and it still comes down to kind of like a feel for goaltending?
So I think we will get to that point. I think the NHL will get there a lot faster than we do. Like, I don't know for certain, but I'm sure they do some sort of cognitive assessments at the combine, especially for goalies. Now, in this country, I would say we're usually 10 years behind. So I would say probably in the next 5 to 8 years, we'll start to see it at.
Oh, we'll be retired by then, mate.
But like that's when I would expect the governing bodies to maybe start to introduce it. However, from a coaching perspective, I think there's a lot of people now who are involved at those levels that see the benefit of it, and they also see the data that comes in with it, and they also see what impact it can have. So, for instance, let's talk about, I won't name any names, but I did a pre-scout on a goalie during the Elite Series, and you asked if you could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Here you go. And you said to me, sure, like, that's interesting because there was something
lateral plays.
Yeah, one of the tests showed that from one side to the other, that was a problem with tracking with the eyes. But it was on my pre-scout as a potential way to beat that goaltender because they seem to give up a lot of goals that way. And straight away, that set a thing off my head. I'm like, that's really interesting. So that's not a technical defect. That's something wrong with, not wrong, but that's a problem where.
Yeah, so without mentioning the name, you said there was an issue laterally, and I said it would be when they go right to left or left to right, whichever way it was, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Because of the way that their scanning vision worked and when we looked at tests. And I remember us having a conversation time saying, imagine if we were working with the same goalie and we knew that in advance.
Yeah. So I think that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. And do I think it will come in? Yes. Do I think it will have an impact in the sense that they will make a team or not make a team based on it. No, but I think it becomes part of the complete package.
Yeah.
So like, when you think about it, when you actually look at goalies from a selection point of view, let's go from like let's say under 16s. You're going to look at, first of all, are they a good person? That's number one. Like, are they a good person? If they're not a good person, like for me, I don't really want. They're going to be a problem. You're away for 10 days and they're not a good person. They're going to cause problems. You don't want that. Then you look at them as a goalie in a tactical point of the way. Like, first of all, like, do they read the game pretty well? Like, do they understand the game? They know what's going on. Yes, okay, good. Because sometimes it's not pretty. Do they stop the puck? Yeah, because they read the game pretty well. So guess what? They use the VH instead of a RVH. Generally don't care. They made a save.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all that matters. Then we'll look at the technical point of the game. Like, how are they in the technical side of the game? And then them as an athlete too, like the fitness level stuff. Can they deal with that sort of wear and tear and what they have to put on their body? Now, if you can add the cognitive into that too, okay, like let's say for instance, you're GB under 18s, you're away at the World Championships, and you're going to be playing against Japan. Japan are notorious. They're a fast team. They're always going to play quick. They're going to be pretty good moving the puck laterally, and they're going to look for like second wave plays. Okay, great. Well, I know this kid here. My two goalies, because when you're with a national team, like a junior national team, usually the two goalies are pretty much the same level. Like there's probably a coin flip between the two of them. But I know this goalie here is way better at identifying than this goalie here. So in a game where it's going to need a lot of identification and a lot of reading the play a little bit better and looking over the raw road and all that sort of stuff, well, I think he might be our guy for this one. Yeah. So now you've got like a little bit of a, not cheat sheet, but you've got another thing that you can pull into your decision making. And for me, I think that could be worth gold in the future.
And from a training point of view, you have that if you're identifying teams you're playing against and you know that's the way they play, being able to add in the run up to those tournaments more work on those skills. So you're kind of increasing the strength of them neural pathways prior to playing. Because just because someone's good at something, right? It's like, yeah, you're better at it than they are. Well, actually, you still need to be really on your game if we're going to stop this team who do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So being able to kind of tailor that off ice provision kind of in the run up to certain situations or scenarios, and going back I guess to the national game for the under 15s, like, right, we need to work on this prior to the event because we know that you're going to struggle with kind of the occasion or managing your emotions or being able to regulate the way you feel. So let's do some work on it beforehand, because we see what's coming and we can adapt the training and development to it individually. And that's why it's so important, I guess, when you're working with sort of goaltenders as individuals, that they're really open and honest. And we were talking just before the video rolled, if you like, that about some goalies that we both work with, and it's like the fact that they start to open up after a while and go, right, okay, this is really how I felt.
Yeah.
Because at the start it's like all very much like bravado and kind of like, but when you peel the onion layers away and you get to the heart of it, they're all a bit insecure, right? They're all a bit kind of like.
I think so. I think it comes naturally with the position.
Yeah, there's no other job, is there, where you get a red light and 10,000 people squealing when you basically get it wrong or mess up or
yeah.
So it's a high pressure, high and weird, like I work with goalies in football, field hockey, and this shot count thing is just the main difference, right? Like no other goalie. Like how many shots did like Pickford have last night in the football?
Yeah, like 3.
But nobody knows, right? It doesn't go in the paper the next day.
Yeah,
none from 3.
Yeah, and
100%.
I know this is slightly off tangent here a little bit, but it's interesting we talk about like the shot count and save percentage and goals against average and stuff like that. Like just to add something to that, like from a goalie's perspective, or from my perspective anyway, like I don't really look at goalie save percentages that much because save percentages are right, from a tracking and a cognitive point of view. If a player takes a shot from the blue line 20 times with nothing in front of them, it's easy, right?
Yeah.
From a cognitive side of things, it's
yep.
dead easy.
Yeah.
Now you put it, so if they take 20 shots from there, I'd expect to make 20 saves. So now let's make them take 10 shots from the slot that's passed into the slot, either from behind the goal line or from wide, and it's a one-time shot, I would expect a player to score probably 5 or 6 out of 10. So actually, the save percentage side of things doesn't really, for me, it's a bit of an outdated stat. I don't really use save percentage that much. I like to use scoring chance save percentage, which is shots from inside the house primarily, and expected goals. So again, it goes back to such a high pressure position that you're always looking at your stats, always looking at your stats, always looking at your stats. Oh my God, I've got to be above 90, got to be above 90. But in reality, some coaches will still look at it and like, don't get me wrong, I don't just ignore it. I do have a quick glance but I'm never going to use it to lean on.
It's weird because my first question, if you like, whenever I speak to them, they'll be like, "How'd you bet the weekend? Yeah, what's the score? 7-1. When was the one?" I always want to know when. It's not how, it's when.
Yeah.
Like first minute of the third. Right, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's interesting. I know we're still going here, but this is interesting for me. So my daughter had a gymnastics competition yesterday. So on the beam, she was petrified about going on the beam. My daughter's a really good gymnast, but for some reason she has it in her head that she's really nervous about the beam because she had a forward roll, I think that's the right word for it, on the beam as part of her routine, and she hadn't landed it in like 2 weeks. She was worried about it, and her first event or first apparatus was the beam. And at regionals about 3 weeks ago, she fell off the beam getting on the beam. So she didn't fall off when she was on it; she fell off getting on it.
Oh, we've all been there.
So she lost a point. And this time, okay, she's on there, she's nervous, bless her. She gets on the beam. What does she do? She falls off straight away. Like, she falls off getting on the beam. All she's doing is lifting herself on it. She falls off. And straight away, I'm like, oh, poor thing. But then she nailed the rest of the routine absolutely perfect. She got a bronze medal. I'm like, that's perfect. But then her teacher said something to us on the way past. She said, I got to figure out like how to stop her falling off the beam when she gets on. Like, it's the first thing. And it got me thinking. I said to Steph, I'm like, do you know what? Like, it's the same thing when a goalie lets in the first couple of games. And they always say to you, like, he's got to stop the first one. It's like, he knows that. Like, he's not doing it intentionally.
Didn't fall off on purpose.
Yeah, she didn't fall off on purpose the first time twice in a row. Just like a goalie doesn't let the first shot in twice in a row, 3 games in a row. And it's like, okay, so, and Steph said to me, like, how would you, from your job, how would you work with the goalie with that? I'm like, to be honest with you, I don't really know, other than just stop the first one.
So for me, I can give you another example actually, because I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning, but Lizzie, I want to call her Michael, but then she told me it's not Michael. Meikle? Lizzie Meikle?
I think that's how you pronounce it, yeah.
Yeah, I keep wanting to call her Michael, but it's definitely Lizzie Meikle. We had a very similar conversation because she basically said something along the lines of this very when we started working together 8-10 months ago, that she really found that she didn't get into games until like the start of the second. So she actually felt kind of mentally, visually that it's like, I don't really feel like I'm in it until the end of the first period. So then you peel that back and you're like, right, well, talk to me about what time you get to the rink and, like what your warm-up's like. And she'd be kind of, I get to the rink when everyone else does, do a bit of a warm-up, throw a ball around, get dressed, go on the ice, blah, blah, blah. It's like, right, but when do you kind of switch on? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, when do you mentally warm up? She's like, well, I start thinking about it when I'm trying. No. When do you actually like get into game mode? Well, I don't know, really. I don't really think about getting into. And it's like when you kind of peel the onion, the game was dictating when she was in it, she wasn't dictating when she was in the game. Do you know what I mean? So she was getting to a point of like, oh, it's the end of the first, right? Like it's almost organically I'm in it.
Yeah.
There was no definitive like, right, it starts now. It was kind of like, right, I'm ready now, let's go. But what happened prior to that 20-minute first period, could have been 0-0, could have been 5-0 down. There was no kind of like rhyme or reason to what happened in that first period. It was just she wasn't ready for it. And I guess a little bit with the same analogy of getting onto the beam is that it's the whole, guaranteed she's thinking about falling off the beam before she walks up to the beam. That's the first thing. Guaranteed.
Oh yeah, because she's worried about falling off on the.
Yeah, 100%. So a bit like a goalie who walks onto the ice and they go through the bench and they stack it. Right, we've all seen that happen. The ones who sort of like go on and stack it instantly. The next time they step onto the ice, that's going through their head. Just don't stack it.
100%.
right? So first things first is you've got to get to the point of eradicating that. Like you've almost got to just accept that that's just an anomaly, and you've got to work on doing that. Because as soon as you think about something, you love this saying, like, he who thinks he can or he who thinks he can't usually right.
Yeah.
I'm going to fall off. You're probably right, then you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like, that's just the way it is. So there's an element of when do you get into competition mode, and I don't know, like, but potentially when she gets up on that beam and is standing in her head, competition starts.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, the minute she approaches the beam, competition starts.
Yeah.
But kids don't get that. Like, kids
No.
don't understand, and athletes don't get that generally. So I think there's definitely an element of when you're warming up or when you're getting ready to perform, of when you consider like the start of the performance.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will. I hate people seeing people dick around in warm ups. It really grates me.
Yeah.
Because you're like, when are you going to switch on? Like a puck drop? Like, why are you doing that? You're not in game mode. You know, the minute you step on the ice, you should be in game mode, right? Like, to me.
Yeah.
But then, so I think the mental warm up is quite an important one, and it's something that I think more people have issues with than they think. But the reason I ask about the time of the goal is always, what was the precursor? Do you know, like, and it was like halfway through the third. Oh, okay. What happened just before it? Oh, we'd just come off a 5-on-3 power play kill. Of course you had.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Well, you were celebrating the fact that you'd kept out 5-on-3, right? That's why they scored. Well, yeah, maybe actually. You know, because there's always a precursor. So mine's always what time was it and what happened before.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to wrap up. So a final bit, really, just I guess if you could kind of just give if there's a goalie watching this, whatever level they're playing at, whether they be under 10s, whether they be playing professionally, whether they have, international, whatever it may be, what's your kind of the last bit that you would want them to take away from this for perhaps looking at developing their cognitive skills down the road?
I just think when it comes to the cognitive side of stuff, like we had that conversation a year ago in Budapest, and to be brutally honest, I didn't really know much about cognitive training at all. Like, I may have even been someone that was like, oh, well, is it that important? Like, does it make that much difference? And then the more and more we spoke about it, the more and more I looked into it, and the more and more you showed me, and I saw it firsthand and how it all works. I'm like, you know what? It's a game changer. Like, and right now in this country, especially in the UK, if you go to the States, they're doing a lot more of it for sure. But here we don't. So if I was a young athlete or a senior athlete or whatever, like, what can you do to get ahead of your competition? Because at the end of the day, like, most people want to be something, whether they want to make it to a professional, they want to make a junior national team, they want to make a career out of this, they want to whatever. What can you do to get ahead of your competition? And for me, like, everyone goes on the ice. Everyone goes on the ice. Everyone will probably see a goalie coach of some sort at some point, whether it's in the summer or whether it's a club or whether it's something else, that they will see a goalie coach. Most people are doing off ice, like, in reality. Like, most people are doing those three things. Okay, so right now you're on the same playing field as everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can add in the cognitive, and you can improve your cognitive training, and you can include your reads, your scans, your tracking, your focus, all this stuff which goes on between the ears, which, let's be honest, what goes on between the ears basically controls everything you do as a human anyway. So if you can add that into your game and into your routine, into your practice, then I don't want to say naturally you're going to get better, because you're going to have to work,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to basically take a leap ahead of everybody else who isn't doing that. And at the end of the day, if you want to get to where you want to get to, you always have to be pushing the boundaries to improve every day. And I think there's a saying, I remember seeing it, I can't remember if it was in a book I read or it was on a webinar that I was involved in a symposium, but it was like, what are you doing every day to be 1% better than you were yesterday? And you add in the cognitive stuff, and you're doing it every day or twice a week or 3 times a week, whether it's webinar stuff you've been given to at home, in person, you're going to improve 1% every day without fail, maybe even 2%. So everyone else is improving 1%, you're now improving 2% because you're doing something they're not doing. So
Yeah.
for me, I think like go in with an open mind is one thing, because you might go in and go, this is gimmicky. It's a gimmick. Like, I've got these glasses on, I'm getting funny balls thrown at me, I've got to do this. But actually, what goes into this and the science behind it, which is the big thing, and the research proves there's results and proves that it does work and there's method to the madness. So if it was me, and I tell all my students, and that's why we now obviously incorporate it with the academy and the camps, is this is something which no one else is doing. So you can get ahead of everybody else.